My son whispered, "Don't tell Mom I sold your truck." I stared at the empty space in the driveway and couldn't believe what I was hearing. That wasn't even the worst part. What I found next shattered everything I thought I knew about my only child. I didn't say anything then, but something deep inside me shifted. The kind of shift that tells a man it's time to take back what's his. But before we continue, let me tell you something. You are a beautiful person. Pause this video and subscribe this channel to join us. It's free. They came back from the trip acting normal, smiles, stories, even a new jacket on my son's shoulders. But I already knew the truth. The truck was gone, and so was my trust. When they asked why I was quiet over dinner, I just smiled. I had already made a call, the call that would change everything. It started with a knock on the garage door. I was finishing my second cup of coffee, the one I always drink sitting on the porch swing Lorraine, and I built the summer before she got sick. The mug was still warm in my hands when I heard it, a hesitant knock, like the person on the other side wasn't sure if they should even be there. I opened the door to find my neighbor's teenage son, Oliver, holding my wrench set. "Mr. Jensen," he mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. "I think this belongs to you. I found it in the back of a guy's truck at the junkyard off Route 9. Said it came with the vehicle." The wrench set Lorraine gifted me for our 30th anniversary. The initials, RJ, still engraved on the lid. The world tilted under my feet. I took the set from him with a nod, shut the door quietly, and walked straight to the driveway. My hands trembled slightly as I looked at the spot where the truck always sat. It had been 2 days since I'd seen it, but I'd told myself maybe Riley had taken it for an oil change or to the parts store. But this was confirmation. The truck wasn't being serviced. It had been sold. And not just any truck. Lorraine and I bought it the summer Caitlin was born. A rusty 1969 Ford F100 that we rebuilt over 5 years, bolt by bolt, every Sunday afternoon, garage door open, country radio playing. It was our therapy during the hard years. We replaced the engine ourselves, reupholstered the seats in brown leather. Lorraine had sewn the headliner by hand. I walked back into the garage, each step echoing like a hammer blow. The walls were lined with memories, our tools, our photo from the county fair when the truck took second place in the vintage category, the old but gold bumper sticker Riley used to laugh at as a kid. My son knew all that. He knew what it meant to me. At first I thought maybe it had been stolen, but Oliver had said the seller claimed to be the owner. Riley, my boy. I sat at the workbench, heart hammering like it used to when Lorraine walked into the room with her Sunday dress on. I reached for the phone. "Hey, Dad," Riley answered after a few rings. "We're just wrapping up brunch. Mom says hi." I didn't mention the wrench set. "I was just wondering where the truck is," I said, keeping my voice steady. A pause, a soft inhale. "Oh, yeah, I meant to tell you. I took it to get some work done. Might be a couple more days." "Where?" "Out near Kingston," he said too quickly. "Some guy who specializes in vintage builds." I knew every vintage guy within 50 miles, and none of them were in Kingston. I could have called him out right then, but instead I said, "All right, just bring it back when it's ready." That night after Evelyn, my daughter-in-law, had gone to bed, Riley came into my office. I had the garage lights off, the old house quiet around us. He stood there for a long time, looking everywhere but at me. "Dad, listen. I need to tell you something, but please don't tell Mom." She'd flip out. I set down my book and waited. I sold the truck. 3 words, that's all, but they landed like a sledgehammer. "I didn't mean to go behind your back, but we needed the money. Evelyn's car broke down, and the bank denied the loan for our remodel. I figured it was just sitting there. I thought maybe you wouldn't miss it that much anymore." "You figured wrong," I said, the words sharp but quiet. He looked wounded, like I'd struck him. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'll fix this, I promise. I'll get it back." "You don't even know where it is anymore, do you?" He didn't answer. That night after he left, I sat in the garage with Lorraine's photo in my hands. She warned me, even on her deathbed. "Don't let them make you small," she'd said. "You've given them everything. One day they'll ask for more. Don't forget who you are." I had forgotten. I'd let myself believe Riley's charm, his easy apologies, his promises. And now my life, my memories, were being sold off like spare parts. But not anymore. I called a friend the next morning. Marcus used to work security detail for auction houses and car shows. If anyone could trace a private sale fast, it was him. I gave him the details: VIN number, color, last location. He promised to start digging. While I waited, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in 2 years. Inside was a manila folder Lorraine, and I kept for unpleasant things: wills, life insurance, power of attorney documents, and behind them a small black notebook. The kind you only open when the people you trust most give you a reason not to. Inside were every investment, asset, and backup account I'd quietly built during my working years. Money Riley didn't know existed. They thought I was just a retired mechanic, a sentimental old man. They'd forgotten I built my life with wrenches and willpower. The house was mine, the bank accounts were mine, and now so was the plan. Marcus called 3 days later. I was sitting in Lorraine's recliner with a mug of chamomile tea, staring out the window at the empty driveway where the truck used to rest like a faithful old dog. "Found it," Marcus said. "You're not gonna like it." I didn't breathe. Guy named Darren Templeton bought it. Private cash sale. No paper trail except a scribbled bill of sale that says, "Gift from father." Guess who signed it? Riley. Bingo. The guy flipped it to a collector in Utah. Got 15 grand cash. Truck's already gone. I sat there, eyes on the chipped paint of the porch rail, the little flake I'd meant to patch last spring. My son had forged my name, lied, sold my memories, pocketed the cash. Thanks, Marcus." Want me to send you the collector's info? No, I said. It's gone. I've accepted that, but I'm not finished. For the rest of that day, I barely moved. Just sat with Lorraine's photo, letting the weight of it all sink into my bones. Riley didn't just sell a vehicle. He sold a piece of our marriage, of his mother's legacy. He treated it like clutter. But what really broke me was how easy it had been for him. No remorse, just a whisper, a plea for secrecy, as if hiding it from Evelyn made it okay. That evening, I opened a hidden account online I hadn't touched in a decade. It held $137,000, the sum of careful investments, tax returns, and odd jobs I did after retirement. I'd told Riley the money had gone toward Lorraine's medical bills. Most of it hadn't. I pulled out my old notebooks, plans, passwords, blueprints, lists of companies I'd once built parts for. I started sorting them, separating what I'd use from what I'd leave behind. Because I wasn't staying here. Not in this house that felt more and more like a mausoleum for people who didn't remember what mattered. 2 days later, Riley and Evelyn came over for dinner. Evelyn brought her usual salad with walnuts I always picked out. Riley carried a six-pack of beer like it was some kind of apology offering. We ate in awkward silence. Evelyn chattered about her job, her new co-worker who brought cinnamon rolls every Thursday. Riley nodded and laughed and stared at his plate like it might save him. I waited. I watched. After dessert, Riley lingered as Evelyn cleared the dishes. "You still mad?" he asked, like we were kids who had broken a window, not sons who had broken their father. "You lied," I said. "You signed my name. You sold something sacred. What did you expect me to feel?" I said I was sorry. I didn't mean. "You didn't mean to get caught," I corrected. "You meant every bit of the rest." Evelyn re-entered the room, drying her hands. "What's going on?" "I sold Dad's truck," Riley said quickly. "I didn't tell you. I needed the money." Her face froze. "You what?" I stood up. "It's gone, just like your trust, both of you." "Dad, don't do this," Riley said. "We made a mistake, but it's not unforgivable." "You've been making mistakes for 5 years," I said. "This one just had a title and chrome bumpers." They left angry. Evelyn slammed the car door. Riley didn't even look back. I stood at the window until their taillights vanished. That night I packed. Not everything, just the things that mattered. Lorraine's ring, my wedding album, the blueprint for the truck we rebuilt, and the letter she wrote me on our 40th anniversary. I took a box of tools, my old denim jacket, and the book I was reading the day Riley confessed. I called my lawyer the next morning and asked about title transfers and power of attorney documents. I made appointments with banks. I called a realtor named Leslie, referred to me by a friend at the VFW, and asked her how quickly she could sell a 2-story house on Oakwood Lane. "If it's in good shape and priced right," she said. "2 weeks max, maybe less." "Make it happen," I told her. I spent the next 4 days preparing. I updated the home, repainted the guest room, fixed the squeaky stair that Lorraine used to call the groaner. I boxed up heirlooms, donated clothes, scanned photographs, and labeled everything I'd be taking. Leslie showed the house to a couple from Santa Fe who were relocating to be near their grandkids. They fell in love with the woodwork, she told me, the craftsmanship. They made a cash offer, full asking. I accepted it on the spot. 3 days before closing, I got a text from Riley. Mom says we should come over, talk everything out. But this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a chapter ending. On the final day in my home, I stood in the garage one last time, ran my fingers across the wall where the growth chart still marked Riley's height in faded pencil, picked up a socket wrench that still had Lorraine's initials etched into it. Then I locked the door and left the keys in a sealed envelope labeled for the new owners. I moved into a small 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of a quiet lake outside town. The kind of place Lorraine always dreamed of retiring to. The water smelled clean, the porch overlooked pine trees, and at night the only sound was the call of distant loons. There was a small outbuilding, too, a garage just big enough for a new project. I paid for everything in cash. No loans, no signatures, no son to help. My new neighbors were kind. One of them, a retired teacher named Helen, brought me blueberry muffins. I thanked her and told her I liked quiet mornings and classical music. She smiled and said I'd fit right in. For the first time in years, I felt peace. A week later, Riley showed up. I saw his car through the trees before he knocked. He looked thinner, older, his face worn like someone who hadn't slept much. I didn't open the door right away. "Dad," he said softly, "please, I just want to talk." I let him in, made coffee the way Lorraine used to, sat across from him at the small table overlooking the lake. "I didn't come to beg," he said. I needed to see you." I waited. I screwed up, selling the truck, everything. I thought if I could make our lives easier, it would make you proud. But I was wrong. You thought stealing from your father would earn you my respect. He shook his head. "No, I thought you wouldn't notice, that it wouldn't matter anymore." It always mattered. We sat in silence. "I lost my job," he admitted. "Didn't want to tell Evelyn. I was trying to cover the gaps, look strong. And now, I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're a man who betrayed his parents' trust," I said. "But you're also my son, and I haven't given up on you." His eyes welled up. "I'm not giving you anything, Riley. Not the money, not the house, not the sympathy. You'll earn your way back the same way I did, one screw, one nail, one rebuilt engine at a time." He nodded. "I want to come work with you," he said. "In the garage, start over." "We'll see." He left quietly. I watched him go, wondering if Lorraine would approve. Probably. She always believed in second chances. But this time, they'd come with boundaries. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The lake was still. Mist rolled across the water like breath from a sleeping giant. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee and sat on the porch with Lorraine's letter in my lap. Her handwriting was as familiar to me as my own, a blend of cursive loops and tight, careful print. "You always said the lake calmed you," the letter began. "I hope someday you'll find your way back there." She had written it during her final weeks, when the days blurred into hospital visits and whispered prayers. At the time, I couldn't bear to read the whole thing, but now, with the old life behind me, her words felt like instructions. "I know Riley struggles to see you clearly sometimes, but I see you, and I know what you're made of." I folded the letter and slid it back into its envelope. Riley showed up again that Saturday. No warning this time, just the sound of gravel crunching under his tires and the soft knock on the cottage door. "Morning," he said. "I brought tools." I glanced down at the beat-up red toolbox in his hands, the same one I gave him for his 12th birthday. He, D, scrawled his name on the inside with a Sharpie. "Come on in," I said. We spent the whole day in the garage. I'd bought a '72 Chevy C10 off a guy online. It was in rough shape, frame rust, cracked dash, engine half dead, but the bones were good. Lorraine always said old trucks were like old men. Dented, maybe, but not done. Riley rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He didn't ask for instructions. He didn't offer excuses. Just got under the hood and listened when I spoke. We didn't talk much at first. Just the sound of sockets turning, metal tapping, and the occasional curse when a bolt refused to budge. Around noon, I handed him a sandwich and a soda. He took both with quiet gratitude. "Mom would have loved this place," he said finally. "She would have. I think she'd forgive me." "She'd make you earn it," I said. "But yeah, I think she would." He nodded, eyes fixed on the rusted carburetor in his hands. Later that evening, we sat by the fire pit I'd built from river stones, watching embers float toward the darkening sky. "I've been thinking," Riley said, "about Everett. About how I grew up always knowing you'd fix things, that you'd catch me when I fell. And I guess I stopped seeing you as someone who needed catching too." I didn't respond right away. I watched the flames, felt their heat in my hands. "I wanted to be the guy Mom believed I could be," he said. "But I ended up being the guy who needed rescuing." "We all need rescuing sometimes," I said. "The problem's when we forget the people we're stealing the rope from." He smiled faintly. "I'm not here to make things right overnight," he said. "I know it doesn't work that way. But I'd like to come by every weekend, work on the truck, learn something, be useful." I stared at him. "All right," I said. That night I opened a fresh notebook. I wrote rebuild plan on the front page and listed everything the C10 needed. New suspension, brakes, carburetor, fresh coat of paint, full electrical rewire. But at the bottom of the list, I added something that hadn't been in any of my builds before. Forgiveness, not optional. Weeks passed. Riley kept showing up. Sometimes he brought Evelyn, who would sit on the porch with a book and chat with the neighbors. Other times he came alone, more grease under his nails each time. He was learning. He still got frustrated when parts didn't fit or bolts stripped. But he was patient. He stayed until the work was done. One afternoon, he handed me a piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked. "Title transfer for the Ford. I tracked down the collector. He still has it. I bought it back." I blinked. "You what?" "It cost me almost everything in my savings. But it's ours again. Yours. The guy even agreed to deliver it next weekend." I stared at the document. Same VIN, same paint code, my truck. "I didn't do it to buy forgiveness," Riley said quickly. "I did it because I finally understand what it meant. To you, to Mom, to all of us." I didn't say anything for a long time. Just stood there, letting the sun warm my face, feeling Lorraine in the wind in the moment. When the truck arrived, I almost cried. The collector had kept it in pristine condition. Even the headliner Lorraine had sewn was intact. It still smelled like her, lavender and saddle soap. Riley helped me park it under the awning beside the garage. We stood in silence for a long time, admiring it like it was a returned family member. "Looks like we've got two projects now," he said. "I guess we do." The next morning I took a drive. Just me and the truck. Radio off, windows down, the wind cutting across the lake road. I drove past our old neighborhood, past the diner Lorraine loved, past the church where we married and buried her. I didn't stop anywhere, just drove. That night, I opened Lorraine's letter one more time. "You're stronger than they know," she'd written. "But don't forget, strength isn't just about holding ground. It's about knowing when to walk away and when to rebuild." I folded it slowly, sealed it back into the envelope, and placed it inside the glove box of the Ford. So it would always ride with me. At the start of summer, Evelyn told us she was pregnant. We were sitting under the back porch canopy, sipping lemonade, Riley tinkering with the Chevy engine. "Surprise," she said, holding up the ultrasound. Riley looked stunned, then elated, then terrified. I recognized every stage. "We haven't told anyone else yet," she said. "We wanted you to be the first." "Why me?" I asked softly. "Because," she said, placing the photo in my hand, "we want our kid to know what kind of man his grandfather really is." I held the image in my weathered fingers, a blur of shadow and hope. "I guess we better get one of these trucks ready for baby seats," I said. They laughed, and I laughed too. The following weeks were a flurry of sawdust, grease, and planning. Riley and I rebuilt the C-10's suspension. We replaced every brake line, rewired the dash, and debated paint colors over sandwiches. Evelyn helped with the interior, picking out fabric swatches while I showed her how to use a heat gun for the vinyl trim. We painted it sky blue, the color Lorraine wore on our first date. By August, both trucks gleamed under the summer sun. and so did our family. And even though I still hadn't forgotten what Riley did, or how close he came to losing everything, I forgave him. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't about erasing the damage. It's about choosing what grows in the space that follows. By fall, the trees along the lake had turned gold and red, their reflections dancing across the surface like stained glass. The C-10 purred like a contented beast, and the Ford, well, she felt like home again. Lorraine would have loved watching it all, the garage humming with life, laughter echoing off the rafters, her boys finally learning how to build something more than just engines. One Saturday morning, Riley arrived early. He walked in holding a plain wooden box. "I made something," he said. I raised an eyebrow. He opened the lid to reveal a hand-carved shift knob. Maple wood, smooth and sanded, stained to match the Ford's interior. On the top, burned into the grain, were three initials, LRJ. Lorraine Rose Jensen, he said quietly. I thought maybe it belonged in the truck. I didn't speak. My fingers closed around the wood, thumb brushing the letters. It was warm, honest, something built with hands and heart. "Let's install it," I said. We worked in silence, just like we used to. No speeches, no grand apologies, just the clink of tools and the creak of memory. That night I took the Ford for a drive alone, through town, past the old high school, past the tree where Lorraine and I carved our names one October night in 1972. The world looked different now, not smaller, not sadder, just settled, like the dust had finally cleared. I parked at the overlook above the lake and turned off the ignition. For a while, I just listened to the wind move through the pines. Then I reached over to the glove box and pulled out Lorraine's letter again. "I hope you're smiling, honey," I whispered. He found his way back. The wind answered in the rustle of leaves. I took that as a yes. That winter, Riley and Evelyn welcomed a son. They named him Ellis Roy Jensen, held him in their arms like he was the most fragile and beautiful machine they'd ever built. When they brought him to visit, I was already in the driveway, arms open. "Your first project," I told Ellis, laughing as he cooed. "We'll start with spark plugs." In the evenings, Evelyn would cook while Riley and I planned spring projects. A shed, a dock extension, maybe even a canoe. He'd ask questions now, listen more than he talked. He stopped trying to prove himself and just started being himself. I didn't need him to be perfect. I just needed him to show up. And now he did, every week. For Christmas, Riley gave me a leather-bound journal. Inside, he'd copied every part number, every torque spec, every diagram from our rebuilds. But at the front, he'd written something by hand. "Dad, I used to think you were unbreakable. Then I broke your trust. And instead of walking away, you gave me a reason to fix it. Thank you for showing me that love is built, not bought." Riley. I read it by the fire that night, the Ford parked outside with its new shift knob glinting under snowflakes. Lorraine's ring gleamed on my finger. My grandson slept in the guest room, and for the first time in decades, I felt completely full. Not because I'd won anything, but because I'd reclaimed everything that mattered. Months later, I finally saw my old house again, accidentally. I'd driven into town for lumber, took a different route back. As I passed Oakwood Lane, I saw it. Fresh paint, new shutters, a swing set in the backyard, a different family living a different story. And that was fine. I didn't slow down. I had nothing left to visit there. A few weeks after that, Riley and I stood under the hood of the C-10, arguing over intake manifolds. He paused mid-sentence and asked, "You ever regret not giving me the house, not just letting it go?" I tightened a bolt before I answered. "If I had given it to you then, Riley, you wouldn't have known what to do with it. You'd have gutted it, painted it beige, sold it off for parts just like the truck." He winced. "But now," I continued, "if I gave you a house, you'd build a home." He didn't reply. He just looked me in the eye and nodded. The next day, we started framing a treehouse for Ellis in the pine behind the cottage. Just a platform at first, but it was sturdy, centered, ready to hold something heavier in time. The same could be said for us. Spring bloomed slowly. The garage filled with fresh sawdust and old country music. Evelyn planted herbs out front. Riley started helping other retirees with yard work and small engine repairs. And I began writing a book, nothing fancy, just my story. Lorraine had always said it might help someone. The first chapter was called Wrench and Reckoning. The last chapter didn't have a title yet, because it wasn't done. One evening, after Riley and Evelyn took Ellis home, I sat alone on the porch. The wind rustled the pines, and somewhere across the water, a loon called. I looked at the two trucks parked side by side. The Ford like memory, the Chevy like redemption, and both of them like family. My phone buzzed, a text from Riley. "Dad, we found a place. Little fixer-upper across the lake. Needs some work, but I want to build it myself. Thought you might want to help." I smiled, typed back. "Only if I get naming rights to the garage." He replied, "Deal, see you Sunday. Love you." "Love you too, son." The words didn't feel heavy anymore. They felt like spring. I walked back inside, poured a glass of bourbon, and sat down at the kitchen table. Lorraine's photo sat nearby, her smile as knowing as ever. "You were right," I told her. Again. She always had been. Adjusting. He hadn't come in the form of payback. It had come in the form of change. And change, real change, is what made the whole journey worth it. If you're listening to this, maybe you've lost something too. Maybe someone took from you, lied to you, underestimated you. Don't stay broken. Don't stay bitter. Pick up your tools. Rebuild. Sometimes the hardest projects turn out to be the most beautiful ones. And sometimes the people we thought were lost just need to be taught how to come home.